afternoon. It's Sunday, February 28th, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The condition of 48-year-old security guard Tzvika Cohen, who was brutally attacked by a Palestinian terrorist at the Malay Adumim Mall after midnight Thursday, continues to be critical. Cohen suffered serious injuries after he was repeatedly attacked with a hatchet all over his body. Doctors at the Hadassah and Kerem Hospital say he is fighting for his life. Meanwhile, security forces overnight captured 21-year-old Palestinian terrorist Saadi Ali Abu Hamid from Al-Zaria, who attacked Cohen before fleeing the scene. He was arrested in Beit Sahur near Bethlehem after members of his family informed the authorities of his whereabouts. He was employed at one of the stores in the shopping center and knew the security guard and all related security procedures. Cohen's brother told Israel Radio Today that the terrorist asked the guard, who happened to be unarmed at the time because he was off duty, to open one of the mall's back doors. He then attacked him with a hatchet, took his keys, and fled the scene. In related news, Israeli officials say that the 3 Palestinians who crossed into southern Israel from Gaza on Saturday were sent by Hamas. The incident occurred yesterday morning when soldiers detected the infiltration into the Eshkol region. Local residents were placed on alert and told to remain inside their homes. Hours later, the 3 Palestinians wearing IDF coats were captured by soldiers and the alert lifted. On Friday afternoon, a 17-year-old Palestinian who attempted to stab soldiers deployed at a checkpoint near Beit El was shot dead by soldiers. Following the attack, security forces searched the perimeter fence of the Israeli community to rule out any infiltration attempt into the community. At least 5 members of the Hamas terror organization were reportedly trapped when a tunnel they were digging collapsed overnight. According to the Palestinian news Al-Quds website, the collapse happened in the Zaytun neighborhood southeast of Gaza City. This is the latest in a series of tunnel collapses over the past several months, during which nearly a dozen Palestinians have been killed. It appears that ties between the European Union and Israel are warming. This according to media reports saying a new framework agreement with Israel to replace the existing 2004 one is being discussed. The new outline will redefine the implementation of cooperation between Israel and Europe on an array of topics that include agriculture, economy, industry, and trade. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu recently said he welcomes the fact that EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini spoke out against the BDS, saying it was a step in the right direction. Netanyahu plans to travel to Brussels to meet with Mogherini later this year and sign the new agreement. Bulgarian authorities say that they are investigating the death of a Palestinian fugitive, Omar Naif Zayed, a convicted murderer who evaded Israeli authorities and whose body was found in the yard of the Palestinian embassy in Sofia Friday morning. Zayed was convicted in 1986 along with 2 others for the fatal stabbing of Jewish yeshiva student Eliyahu Amdi in Jerusalem's Old City. After serving 4 years in jail, he escaped to Bulgaria, where he married and had 3 children. Last year, Israel submitted a formal request to the Bulgarian authorities demanding that they extradite Zayed. Zayed sought refuge in the Palestinian embassy to evade arrest. Palestinian officials were quick to accuse Israel of killing Zayed. Local authorities said no marks of violence were found on his body, this despite conflicting reports saying he had been shot and others claiming he had fallen from one of the embassy's floors. Preliminary results in Iran's parliamentary elections show a strong standing for the country's moderates. So far, with nearly 90% of the votes counted, allies in Iran's former President Hassan Rouhani have won a landslide victory. The group, who is seeking to improve relations with the West and have more freedom at home, is hoping to gain a majority in the conservative-dominated bodies. This is the first such election since the signing of the Iranian nuclear deal with world powers. On Friday, millions of Iranian residents took to the polls to elect the 290-seat parliament, as well as members of the Assembly of Experts, which appoints Tehran's supreme leader. Official results of the election are expected to be announced on Tuesday. Violence significantly decreased in much of Syria on this second day of the American-Russian brokered truce calling for a cessation of hostilities. Reports out of Syria say Russian warplanes attacked 6 towns in the western part of the Aleppo region today. IBA's Marko Dudkevich has been closely monitoring developments and brings us this report.
After 5 years of war, the guns were mostly silent as the delicate American-Russian brokered ceasefire appeared to be holding, with scattered violations of sporadic fighting, bombing and airstrikes reported in parts of the country. Some 97 armed groups plus Syrian regime forces agreed to abide by the deal, calling for a 2-week cessation in hostilities to allow humanitarian aid into the country. The Islamic State and the Al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria Nusra Front are excluded from the agreement. Russia suspended all airstrikes for one day, Saturday. Elsewhere in the country, Syrians took advantage of the lull in violence to clear debris from their war-battered towns and cities. US President Barack Obama said he doubted the violence in the country would end immediately, but called on all parties to abide by the agreement. He stressed that the deal to halt fighting does not apply to the US-led fight against the Islamic State.
Still, the only way to deal ISIL a lasting defeat is to end the civil war and chaos in Syria upon which ISIL thrives. A cessation of hostilities in the civil war is scheduled to take effect this weekend. Now, we're not under any illusions. There are plenty of reasons for skepticism. And even under the best of circumstances, the violence will not end right away. But everyone knows what needs to happen. All parties must end attacks, including aerial bombardment. Humanitarian aid must be allowed to reach areas under siege. And a lot of this is going to depend on whether the Syrian regime, Russia, and their allies live up to their commitments. The coming hours and days will be critical, and the world is watching.
At a news conference in Moscow, a Russian defense official said some 6,100 fighters from different factions in Syria had joined the ceasefire, and Russia had supplied the US with their details, as well as a list of 74 districts that should not be targeted. Residents in Damascus this morning expressed cautious optimism, describing the general atmosphere in the capital good. Similar sentiments were shared by residents in Jaramana, southeast of Damascus, where Syrian regime forces are in control. In the northwestern town of Idlib, members of Jaish al-Fatah said they expected the Syrian regime to violate the ceasefire and called the cessation in hostilities a betrayal to all those killed in the 5-year conflict. In Geneva, the UN Special Envoy for Syria said the United Nations plans to resume talks to solve the Syrian crisis on March 7th.
All cessation of hostilities I've seen in any type of conflict I've been part of, and certainly in this one, which has been and is probably one of the worst we have seen in a generation, there is a high chances that we should expect some hiccups, that needs of adjustments, and tensions and incidents. The important point that we need to see is if those incidents will be quickly brought under control and contained. That is going to be the test.
Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Well, joining us now from our studios in Haifa is Iran Singer, Israel Radio's Arab Affairs reporter. Iran, thanks for joining us.
Hi, good evening.
So Iran, despite all the predictions, the ceasefire in Syria appears to be holding. Is this a sign of war fatigue on all sides?
Well, as it looks right now, it is holding, but we are hearing some sounds of scratches in this agreement. The Russians have said that they have already seen 9 violations of the agreement in the last 24 hours. And it seems that the rebels or the Syrian opposition is saying the same thing about the Russians. They're saying that Russian airplanes have again hit targets this morning in the northern part of Syria, and I believe that we will be hearing these mutual accusations in the coming days. The question is, what is going to happen with the humanitarian aid that the UN is trying to get into Syria? Because once you have achieved the goal of entering new humanitarian aid into Syria, it will be easier to fulfill this agreement. But as it looks right now, it's going to be very hard.
Well, who's not part of the ceasefire, Iran? Who's not participating?
Well, according to the United States and Russia, Daesh, which means the Islamic State, and Jabhat al-Nusra, which is the Al-Qaeda in Syria, the main organizations, are the only 2 organizations which are out of this agreement. But at the same time, the Syrian regime, Bashar al-Assad, is saying that he will keep on fighting all the Islamic or the extreme Islamic organizations which are operating in Syria. In other words, he is not only talking about Jabhat al-Nusra or the Islamic State, he is aiming other organizations. And this is the most problematic thing here, because once he is saying that I'm not going to hit only the ones that are agreed upon, the United States and Russia, we are now looking at the problem. I've been hearing what the Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Jubeir said a few minutes ago, and he was very clear. He said that we are now seeing that the Russians and the Syrians are not doing what they have to do in order to make this ceasefire work. And this is why we, the Saudis, and other countries that are supporting the Syrian opposition, we are now thinking of going into Plan B. In other words, you are hearing more and more voices coming from the Saudi part of the equation, the Turks and others, saying that if this diplomatic effort will not succeed, we will have to try the military one.
Let's go back a second. Why did Assad agree to have the ceasefire? What happened?
I don't think that it was his decision eventually. This decision was made by the Russians. They know that there is no other alternative. They made it very clear that they support him or they support the Syrian regime. By the way, no one actually knows whether the Russian government is supporting Bashar al-Assad and wants Bashar al-Assad to keep to be the president of Syria, or the only thing they want is that the regime will keep on working in Syria. But what we do know is that the Russians are working very hard to make sure that their interests are now kept in Syria. And in order to keep their interests in Syria, it was very, very important for them to make sure that this ceasefire will take place. And once they decided that they want this agreement, they put all the pressure they could on Bashar al-Assad. Another thing is the fact that Russia is now also under pressure, not only from the United States. We are seeing some Arab countries which were part of a major agreement to sell weapons, or that the Russians will sell them weapons. Right. We are now seeing that the Russians are being asked by the same countries to make sure that Bashar al-Assad is gone, or to make sure that this ceasefire will work, because if it doesn't work, all the weapons that the Russians were about to sell them will not be sold. So I think that this is a major, major deal, not only when it comes to the relations between the Russians and the Syrian government. This is a major step that we're now seeing in the relations between Russia and the West, and Russia and the Arab world.
Very interesting. You know, we have a little bit more time just for a very brief question. I want to ask you about Gaza, and another tunnel has collapsed today. And the Palestinians, are they concerned that this sort of weapon that they have is being wiped out? Why is Hamas so keen on pursuing these tunnels?
Well, what we've been seeing in the last weeks is more and more tunnels that were dug by the Hamas militias collapsing in this area. If you'll ask some Israeli officials, they would tell you that it's all because of the weather in the area. But the ones I talked to believe that this is a very interesting combination of what the Israelis are saying and what the Palestinian side is saying or claiming. They don't have any proof right now, but there may be something going on that Israel is connected to. This is what they say. This is what they blame Israel for. They haven't shown any proof, as I said, so far, but we are now hearing more and more claims from the Palestinian side saying that Israel is responsible for the collapse, for the major collapse of their tunnels. And let me remind you that these tunnels underneath Gaza are the strategic weapons of Hamas in this area. Once they decide to fight Israel, once they decide to keep on fighting Israel, the only way they can do it, according to what they say, is digging more and more tunnels. But if it is true that someone, the Israelis or the Egyptians or others, have the capability to make these tunnels collapse, this is a major problem for them.
Eran Singer, the Arab Affairs reporter for Israel Radio. Always a pleasure to hear your insight. Thanks for joining IBA News.
Thank you.
For the first time, an Israeli Knesset member has indicated that Israel was involved in the killing of senior Hezbollah commander Samir Kuntar last December. Zionist Union MK Omer Bar-Lev confirmed that Kuntar's assassination was a great achievement for Israel. Speaking during a cultural event in Beersheba on Saturday, Bar-Lev, a member of the Knesset's Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, said he would advise Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah not to leave his bunker since he is considered a serious enemy target. When asked by the interviewer if Nasrallah would be targeted like Kuntar, Bar-Lev first tried to avoid the issue and said he prefers not to get into details. But when asked if he would describe the killing of Kuntar as Israel's greatest success, Bar-Lev responded definitely. Until now, Israel has refused to comment on its role in the incident. Bar-Lev later clarified his comments, saying that every elimination of any terrorist is always welcome regardless of who carries out the killing. Renee Rabinowitz, an 81-year-old Holocaust survivor from Jerusalem, is suing the national airline El Al for forcing her to move seats on a flight because an ultra-Orthodox man refused to sit next to a woman. Rabinowitz, who moved to Israel from the United States a decade ago, was born in Belgium. Her family fled the Nazi occupation, and she herself was raised in a religious home.
I don't want money. I want this to stop. I think Haredim do not have the right to tell the rest of us how to live. If they want to do their way, that's fine. Let them all sit in one section in the plane. But not to ask us to move, not smash TVs, not carry on. I believe that Haredim are a big part of the number of passengers on El Al. From what I have seen on different flights, they travel El Al. I do too, because it's the Israeli airline. I feel it's secure, and I like El Al, but I don't like this. I would like the same thing that was achieved in the bus line again, at least in Yerushalayim, which is a sign or an announcement or a practice, and everyone can sit in the seat they choose, and no one may be asked to move. That's what I would like.
Jerusalem's Machane Yehuda market, frequented by thousands of Israelis and tourists during the day, turns into an art gallery at night. At the end of the day, stall owners roll down their shutters to reveal graffiti-like murals of characters ranging from biblical heroes to former Israeli prime ministers. Local artist Solomon Sauza, together with his friend Berel Han, took on the job of painting some 140 shutters in the market, turning them into his own personal canvas.
Around a year ago, we started a project in the Shuk Machne Yehuda, and we decided to turn the empty shutters when the shops close in the nighttime into a gallery of art, of historical and inspirational characters.
I was walking through the Shuk on a Shabbat afternoon, and I envisioned it full of color and full of people. And it slowly developed into an idea to establish a historical, educational, inspirational gallery here in the Shuk.
Shopkeepers close their shops at night, and just by putting paint on some empty metal surface, it creates a magical world.
It's Sunday, and as we get off to a new week, here are 5 good things that may put a smile on your face or make you feel a bit proud. A huge compliment from Microsoft mastermind Bill Gates, who said that Israeli technology is making the world a better place. Speaking in a recorded message at an annual event of the Microsoft Israel R&D Center, Gates said Israeli development in the field of tech analytic and security are literally changing the world. Israeli-created app Brizometer, which measures the level of air pollution in a specific location, is now available in Europe and Asia, adding millions of more users to its current 50 million daily base of clients. Local innovation will also be incorporated into a new fleet of Nissan cars. The Japanese car giant has signed an agreement of understanding with the homegrown Mobileye road systems, integrating the automatic digital map technology in their new force of vehicles. That is something out of this world. Israeli concept artist Eyal Gever is working with NASA to produce the first ever sculpture in space. A digital image will be beamed up to the International Space Station before being turned into a sculpture using a 3D printer designed to work with zero gravity. Back here on Earth, and perhaps less impressive but encouraging, gas prices are slated to go down after midnight tomorrow by 19 agorot per liter. The price of 95 octane at the self-service line will stand at 5 shekels 54 agorot per liter. Taking a look at local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange started off this trading week in the plus column. Here's a look at the mid-afternoon numbers. Looking at the weather, and the forecast is for unseasonably warm temperatures with wind gusts expected in the hilly regions. Here's a look at the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That's our broadcast of IBA News today. Please join us again tomorrow when Laura Cornfield will be here to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Ariel Sullivan, wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.